So we're now into the last presentation for topic 2, and what we want to understand here are macro equilibrium diagrams. So diagrams that graph both AD, SRAS and LRAS onto the same diagram. I also want to think about how changes in equilibrium can affect our macroeconomic targets. So let's take a few different examples. So we've got a classical LRAS curve. Now remember what this represents, the LRAS, if this is the production possibility boundary diagram, represents the maximum that we are capable of. It means that all factors of production are working in the most efficient way possible. If we go back to our bathtub example, it means that the water level is right at the top. We cannot possibly do any more than this. Let's think about an equilibrium point now. We have our AD curve and our SRAS curve. We have our equilibrium point. So we can see that at the moment we are not achieving our production possibility boundary line. It also shows that the bathtub is not quite full. So let's think about what we can do to try and rectify some of this problem. If AD was to move to the right, then what we find is that output increases to Y2 and price levels increase to P2. Now this is fantastic in the sense that it will help us achieve some of our macroeconomic targets. One target that we can see we've achieved is we've got higher economic growth. We can also see that as we start to produce more, businesses will have to take on board more workers. So we should achieve higher employment, which hopefully will mean unemployment starts to fall. Problem we have though, we can see this creates demand pull inflation. So we do have a trade-off between our economic targets. Let's think about why we'll get this inflation. As we move from Y1 to Y2, we're getting closer to the long-run aggregate supply curve. That means resources starting to become scarce. Let's take workers for example. As the number of unemployed people fall, businesses find it more difficult to find workers. They have to offer higher wages to get people to come work for them. This in turn will mean that wage demand starts to increase, so we start to get more inflation within the economy. Higher demand also means that more people will want to buy things in the economy, so businesses in turn will put their prices up. Let's think also how we can go about getting closer to our long-run aggregate supply curve. So again, real GDP, price level, LRAS, AD, SRAS. We've got our equilibrium point and we've got our long-run potential. If we can increase short-run aggregate supply curve to SRAS1, we can see that we've got lots of beneficial things happening within our country now. What this will probably mean is, well, we can see straight away that the output of the economy is falling. That will mean we achieve higher economic growth. Output is increased from Y1 to Y2. We can see that price levels are falling. So inflation is low. We can also see that as business costs go down, the more we're willing to produce more goods and services. This in turn should lead to higher employment. Now another bonus of this is that what we will hopefully see as well is a rise in our international competitiveness. Things are cheaper, more people across the world are likely to buy from us. This in turn will mean that our trade deficit should fall, so our balance of payments should start to become better. So from the two policies, flicking back to the last slide for example, we can see that an increasing aggregate demand alone, good for growth, good for employment, but does create inflation. If we go for a change in supply, then it looks all positive. We're only getting good things happening in our economy. We're helping us achieve all of our supply side policies. Let's very quickly talk about how we go about achieving these different things. If we want to increase demand from AD to AD1, this will be achieved by increasing consumption, investment, government spending, or exports in the economy. It can also be achieved by lowering imports in the economy. Supply can be increased by lowering business costs. Clearly, if supply fell, went from SRAS1 to SRAS, business costs are increasing. That will mean that economic growth will start to fall. Going back to our demand diagram, if demand fell from AD1 to AD, we can see that economic growth would fall, employment levels would start to fall, but the demand pull inflation we had previously would start to be reversed. One final thing I want to mention with this topic is how we would go about increasing the long run potential of the economy. So we have real GDP, we have price levels. Remember, the LRAS is the potential of the economy. It's our PPB line. Now what we can find out is that if we can somehow improve or increase our resources, the long run potential of the economy increases. Just to recap, this will be achieved through increasing our factors of production and improving our factors of production. These are what we call supply side policies, which we'll be looking at later on. So say for example the government invests more money in education and training, this will lead to an increase in the long run potential of our economy. This means our PPB increases. It also means if I draw our bathtub, that our bathtub has got bigger. We can now grow more as an economy. If we were at an equilibrium point here, we can see that we're a long way from the long run potential of the economy. At this point, increasing LRAS is not that important. We can grow a lot without needing to worry about increasing LRAS. But if we're here, we can see we're very close to LRAS. The only way we can grow in the future is to increase LRAS.